Hello everyone, I'm Rabbi Chaitovsky here in my office at BMH-BJ in Denver, Colorado. Welcome back. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to learn with you, and it really feels good to know that you're out there. And let's learn a little bit together about this week's Torah portion, the Torah portion of Shemot, which means names. And Sefer Shemot, the second book of the Torah, is the book of names. And its actual name, its real name, is Sefer Yetziat Mitzrayim, the book of the Exodus from Egypt. Although, for colloquial purposes, we say that it's Sefer Shemot, and it does begin with a listing of names, and it begins with the names of literally the children of Yaakov, but here they're called Bnai Israel. It's one of the first times that we have an inkling of Bnei Israel, which is being used as specifically the children of Jacob, but we know from experience that it has a larger implication, and it's the term we use to describe the Jewish nation. And this particular book of the Torah is significant on any number of levels, but most significant, and one of the reasons it's my favorite book of the entire Torah, if there even is possible to have a favorite book, is because this story described here is actually our people's master story. It's the overarching story of our people, and it's how we became Bnei Israel, how we were transformed from Bnei Yaakov, from the children of Jacob, into Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, meaning the nation of Israel. And we know that story took a number of turns, and one of those turns was through the crucible of the slavery in Egypt. And the opening chapter of Shemot describes a four-part program on the part of Pharaoh, a campaign against the Hebrews, against these interlopers, as Pharaoh called them, this fifth column, who he thought would rise up against them if given the opportunity of, let's say, an alliance with an enemy that would be at war with Egypt. He promoted the idea that the Hebrews would band together with the Egyptian enemy, and he instilled fear in the people, and the people began to agitate and get worried about what would happen, and the next thing you know, the Hebrews are now enslaved by the Egyptians. We're not going to talk about the process through which that happened, but I want to highlight one little episode that was a little bit of a bump in the road for Pharaoh, and that was the episode of the two midwives, heroes of the story, heroines of our story in many ways. And part of the program that Pharaoh instituted was a population control program, and he conscripted he conscripted into service. It says mialdot ha'ivriot, Hebrew midwives, and the Torah tells us Shem ha'achat shifra, v'shem hashenit pua, that one is named Shifra and the other one was named Pua. And Pharaoh says to them that when you see a Hebrew giving birth, he says, take a look, and if it's a son, kill it. If it's a daughter, you can let it live. Midrashically, the focus on sons rather than daughters had to do with the fact that his astrologers had foreseen that a savior was going to be born, so Pharaoh wanted to sort of shortchange that particular possibility from happening, and he said, kill the children. But the Torah says something fascinating about the midwives, Shifra and Pua. It says, Vatirena ham yaldot et Elohim, that the midwives feared God. V'lo asu ka'asher diber alehen melech Mitzrayim. They did not listen to what the king of Egypt had said. V'tachayena et hayeladim, and they let the children live. Now, why are we being told that they feared God? They're Shifra and Pua. Rashi says that Shifra and Pua were actually code names. Shifra for the word to beautify, and Pua from the word meaning to make like baby sounds, like cooing in front of the baby. Those were nicknames. Their actual names were Yocheved and Miriam. We know Yocheved and Miriam to be the mother and sister of Moses, who was going to be born in this particular Torah portion. So these are two Hebrew women, and we're told that they feared God and didn't listen to Pharaoh. And I guess that's an amazing thing on its own, under a regime that was bent on eradicating the very presence of our people. And an edict from Pharaoh comes, and there's two people who disobey. But it's interesting, not everyone says that Shifra and Pua were really Yocheved and Miriam. They say something even more astonishing. They say that these two midwives were not Hebrew midwives as much as they were midwives to the Hebrews. And they point out that these were not Jewish women. After all, how could Pharaoh ask two Jewish women to kill other Jews? The likelihood of that success would have been very low. It has happened, other people have tried it, and it's unfortunate, but the likelihood of success was very low. It actually makes a little bit more sense, some of these commentators suggest, that the women involved had nothing to do with the Hebrew community, other than the fact that they were employed by them. So these were not Jewish women, as we understand it. And the Torah specifically tells us that these two non-Hebrew women defied a direct order of Pharaoh for no other reason than Vatirena Hamialdot et Elohim. That these midwives had a fear of God. They answered to that higher authority, an authority higher than Pharaoh. They were risking their lives doing this. And when Pharaoh asked them, "What have you done? Why didn't you listen?" they didn't tell him, "We feared God." What they said was that Hebrew women are a little bit different. They're very vigorous. They give birth very quickly. And by the time we get there, the babies are already taken away. Like, we get there too late. They don't even need us. They don't need our assistance. So there was a subterfuge going on, and the fact remains that we have an example here we have evidence here that there were people who were not Hebrews, who had a certain sensitivity to ethics and to morals. Even in the morass that became Egypt, there were people who were able to rise above that. It is no accident that the story of our exodus from Egypt, our enslavement and exodus in Egypt, has become our master story. And it is no accident that the Torah many times invokes our experience, the memory of our experience in Egypt, as a reason to live the ethical life. Do not oppress a widow, or do not do some other horrible activity because you were once slaves in Egypt and you knew what it was like to be on the short end of that stick. This is a formative story for us. This is the story of how we achieved our name, Bnai Israel, and how we emerged from Egypt, not simply as a band of Hebrews, but as a unified nation. And it's a fascinating story, and we're going to be engaged in its study for the next number of weeks. And we hope that you'll be joining me right here at BMH-BJ in Denver, or at services every Shabbat and throughout the week as we explore the ins and outs of the enslavement and exodus from Egypt. Shabbat Shalom.